Hey everybody, it's Mr. Robbie, and I wanted to introduce you to the English Unplugged podcast. So first off, I want to talk about who I am and what my goals are for this podcast, and what is English Unplugged. So first off, I'm Robbie, I'm 33 years old. I've been teaching online English since 2018. I primarily teach business English, business interviews, conversation skills, and IELTS preparation. I also teach technology conversation skills and technology English because, my background is in cybersecurity, so I feel like that's a really important niche for me. So next I would like to talk about what is English Unplugged. So English Unplugged is a no BS, no fluff approach to English learning. I realize that a lot of companies, a lot of teachers, they really make English learning very romantic, and you have to be like a C1 speaker, and you have to be academic scholar, and you have to walk on water. But the approach is, that's not realistic. It doesn't work that way. So my goal is to be able to help students to think about how to become an effective communicator, because I think that effective communication nowadays is more vital than becoming like an academic scholar. And really, there is a major difference between the way someone writes English and the way someone speaks in English. I'm a firm believer that English was never designed to be a scholarly way of communication, but in a communicative way. Because, that's what language is to communicate with another person. So that's kind of like my approach to English learning. So when I'm working with students, I teach them about very direct ways of learning, very simplistic ideas, because I see the results. I see students who struggle with English, and then I put them on my idea for learning, and they do well. And to me, that's really important. So that's my overall goal when it comes to making English Unplugged, is a more straightforward pathway for people to learn and have effective communication. So now the goals for my podcast are, I would like to encourage students to use this as an extra resource for learning and listening skills. If you want some more tips or tricks, or just need to improve your listening skills because you're listening to a native speaker, this is that goal. That's the goal of the podcast. Because I think many students, they want to listen to native speakers, they want to listen to something more natural, but they're not too sure where to look or what to do. So that's kind of my goal. Also, another goal is to make my podcast really engaging, which means I would like students or people listening to send me questions about English. Give me some English tips. How do I handle this grammar question? Whatever it may be. Because at the end of the day, my goal as a teacher isn't to give you this super fantastic idea, but to answer questions, to give guidance in a more realistic, human way. I think teachers nowadays should be mentors, kind of like surrogate fathers or mothers to help people to reach their goals. So that is my goal with this podcast. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of give you two tips. One kind of related to business English, and then one about just general English conversation. So first off, my first tip for English in business is try to use like simple language. One thing that's been really talked about not only in like my field, which is IT, but also in other fields like medicine, business, stuff like this, is that we need to explain things in a really simplistic way to customers and like shareholders, because nowadays many businesses have turned into a service. So meaning that there is now customers involved. So we can't just use big terminology with our coworkers. We need to be able to have more direct, straightforward communication. So try not to sound smart. That's not the goal in your business lifestyle. Your goal is to be understood and have effective communication. So that's my business English tip. Also you can use that for your business interviews, because a lot of times students will make very complicated statements in their business interviews and maybe miss out on an opportunity. So if you want to gain an edge against the other people applying for that job, explain things in a very simple way. And next, I would like to talk about a common mistake that students make, and that's misusing preposition, especially with verbs. So for example, some people might say, I arrived to the airport, instead of saying, I arrived at the airport. Another common mistake, instead of using in, instead of at. So when talking about specific locations, such as I'm in the park, instead of I'm at the park. So these are some things that we can do to kind of improve our English, make it sound more natural. So those are just some tips for this podcast. So guys, if you guys are interested in sending me questions, I do have a Google form. I will link it down below in the comments. If you have any questions or concerns, again, shoot me an email, whatever it may be. But I appreciate you guys for coming to my podcast, and I look forward to engaging with my students more, and hopefully you found this helpful. Please leave a comment, like, or, share with your friends. I really would like to make this podcast a really useful tool for students to become more effective speakers. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, and happy learning.